Hi guys, Marvin here from TechBroll.com, where we do unboxings, reviews, and sexy b-rolls. And today's video is a little different. We're actually taking a look at a smartphone just to spice things a bit here on our channel. Today we have the new budget smartphone from Huawei, the Huawei Y7P. With that being said, let's get into it. Alright guys, so right here I have the packaging for the new Huawei Y7P smartphone. And it's actually pretty straightforward with just the image preview of the phone and some model name branding around the box. So let's see what comes in the package. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice inside the box is the Huawei Y7P itself. An accessory box with a SIM ejector pin, a substantial charging cable but unfortunately is still micro USB, and the power brick. By the way, this is just a review sample and what you're actually going to get when you purchase one will come with an earphone, so don't worry about that. As for the accessory box, like I said, we have a SIM ejector tool, and inside the box we have a nice TPU protective case, which is awesome. Alright, so let's take a look at the new Huawei Y7P smartphone. So at first look and touch, it feels lightweight at only around 180 grams, and though mostly made of polycarbonate plastic, it feels solid enough and certainly doesn't look cheap at all. At the back, we have the so-called 2.5D design that allows some sort of light refraction that's actually quite trippy and makes the phone more interesting than usual. It has this combination of blue and teal colors that Huawei calls Aurora Blue with nano texture technology. So as you can see, there is a quite substantial border around the edges that responds to light reflections that look really good, especially the fact that it is just made of plastic. So in front, we have the 6.39-inch display that Huawei calls Punch Full View. We'll take a look at this shortly, but as the name says, it does have a punch hole design for the selfie camera. The bezels around the phone don't look that thick as well, which is nice, and the overall look at the front is pretty decent with a very subtle earpiece. At the back, we have the triple camera setup that we're going to test properly later, a small flash, a fingerprint reader at the top center, a Huawei logo at the lower left corner, and some certifications and other details right across it. Now looking around the phone, at the bottom we have the single downward firing speaker, a rather dated micro USB port, the main microphone, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And then on the opposite side, we just have the secondary microphone. On the right side, we have the volume rocker as well as the power button, and then on the other side, we have the dual SIM tray with an option for external micro SD card that supports up to 512GB. Overall, in terms of design and construction, it is pretty decent and certainly unlike candy, but unfortunately, like most smartphones nowadays, regardless if it's made of plastic or glass, it is a fingerprint magnet. That's why it is nice to use a protective case like this or some fancy aftermarket cases. Now before we proceed, I'll pop the complete specifications on the screen so that you can check it out. But what's important here is that it features a 6.39-inch HD Plus display and is powered by Huawei's own Kirin 710F octa-core processor with a Mali G51MP4 GPU. It also has a decent 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage. Camera-wise, it boasts a triple camera setup at the back with 48MP main, 8MP ultra-wide, and a 2MP depth sensor. As for selfies, we have an 8MP camera in front. It also packs a decent amount of juice with 4000mAh of battery. All these capable specs are running the EMUI 9.1 based on Android 9, also known as Android Pie. Alright guys, with all the technical specifications out of the way, let's talk about the features and performance of the Huawei Y7P. Let's start with the display, which is one of the most important aspects of a smartphone because that is what you're looking at 99% of the time. With that being said, although it only has an HD Plus display which is basically 1560 by 720p, the display of the Huawei Y7P is actually pretty decent. The colors are vibrant, sharpness is substantial with a good amount of contrast, and with an IPS panel, viewing angle and color reproduction is also pretty good. It can also get bright at maximum settings and certainly usable outdoors in ideal conditions. I actually like the fact that Huawei opted for a punch hole design with this one because I prefer this over the water drop camera design. It is less annoying and less obtrusive, and most of the time it is covered by my left hand when watching videos, playing games, and everything that I do on the landscape orientation. Moving on in terms of audio, I'd say the single downward firing speaker is decent but nothing to write home about. The sound is a little bit muffled and volume levels are quite weak even at maximum setting. Low end is lacking but at least vocals, mid-range, and highs are pretty decent. Here's a quick sound test for you guys. Now, before we move on to a more technical part of this review, let's take a quick look at the user interface and apps of the Huawei Y7P. The Huawei Y7P is running on EMUI 9.1 based on Android 9, which is obviously not the latest but still quite reliable. And with decent specs, the overall feel of the user interface is actually smooth. Scrolling, browsing, opening apps are quite snappy without much hiccup. Now, in terms of my first experience with EMUI, it's not that bad. It's not as bloated as I was expecting it to be, and it actually has some useful pre-installed apps, especially for the first time Huawei and EMUI users. For example, we have the support app here, which basically gives you a ton of information when it comes to troubleshooting your device, looking for service centers, repair progress, and all that useful tips. And I think this is actually my first time to encounter such an elaborate app when it comes to customer support. Not entirely sure though on how Huawei handles aftermarket service, as like I said, this is my first try at a Huawei device, but this is a very promising app to begin with. Not only that, we also have here the Tips app, which now provides you with everything you need to know about the different features of the device with virtual guides as you can see here. In my opinion, this is useful for again first-time Huawei users like myself. Not necessary for power users but still a very well appreciated feature. Aside from that, we also have here the Music app, which has a built-in music streaming library to go along with your local files, which I think again is not necessary but is a nice feature to have if you just want to listen to any random music depending on your mood. And of course, why not do that as well with a video app? It also has a built-in video streaming service aside from being able to view your local files. We also have here the Health app, which is quite useful for fitness junkies out there, especially if you have a compatible Huawei device like smartwatches, smartband, and whatnot. Right now, I am actually using a smartband from another brand, but I'm curious how well this app works when partnered with Huawei smart devices, especially that you already have this app pre-installed. Speaking of apps, we all know that Huawei is now using their own app gallery and they are continuously improving it and populating it with more apps. So as you can see here, we have featured apps, we have different categories, and we have top ranking apps. And aside from that, they also have this kind of reward feature that provides users with different incentives for using different apps from featured developers. And like I said, they are still improving this, and just in case you're looking for a certain app that isn't available yet, you have this wishlist feature wherein you can actually request particular apps to be added to the Huawei app gallery. Alright guys, let's move on to a more in-depth analysis of the other vital key features of the Huawei Y7P. In terms of security, the Huawei Y7P features a fingerprint sensor at the back, and as per my testing, it is not the fastest but still more reliable than most in-display fingerprint sensors out there. Aside from that, it also features a face unlock method, but personally at this point in this technology, I'd rather use the fingerprint sensor. But face unlock might come in handy in certain situations, so it is still a nice feature to have. Now, digging further on the performance side of things, the Huawei Y7P with a Kirin 710F processor partnered with a Mali G51MP4 GPU and with a substantial 4GB of RAM is certainly capable of light multitasking and gaming. With that said, here are some benchmarks for you guys. As for gaming, for the most part, the Huawei Y7P performed decently well. The gameplay is smooth on almost all the games that I tested, including graphics-intensive games such as Asphalt 9, PUBG Mobile, and the lighter Mobile Legends. And playing casual games like Subway Surfer and Worm Zone was a breeze. The only game that I encountered some slight stuttering is of course PUBG Mobile, but turning the graphics settings to smooth and low, I was able to play a whole game without any issue. This is actually my first time playing PUBG Mobile, and being able to finish the game with a chicken dinner, although for sure with easy opponents, is quite satisfying. Interestingly, this is also my first time playing Mobile Legends, and I'd say it is actually pretty fun. I'm actually more like a PC gamer than a mobile gamer, but yeah, the Huawei Y7P is certainly capable for gaming. Alright guys, before we end this review, of course we need to discuss about the triple camera setup with 48 megapixels that Huawei is boasting about. So in front, we have an 8 megapixel selfie camera in a punch hole design, and then at the back, we have the 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and the 2 megapixel depth sensor for that bokeh-licious background effect. Alright, so the Huawei Y7P's camera app has this aperture setting, wherein you can manually adjust the aperture up to f16, but since there is no mechanical aperture on this device, this is done on a software level. And as per my testing, there's definitely some differences among these images, but this is nowhere near reality, especially if you take a look at f16. There should be more things in focus in the background. But I won't get too critical on this, and it is still quite interesting to test. Next is night mode indoors, and I gotta be honest, the night mode is actually quite useful. Like on this test, there's no other light source other than my PC and my monitor, and the night mode was able to decently show the subject. Now the next comparison is between the normal 18 megapixel photo mode and the 48 megapixel mode. To be honest, at first look, I cannot seem to distinguish any significant difference between these two unless you start pixel peeping and zooming on the images. Then you will notice that the 48 megapixels, other than having a larger resolution, also has a bit more sharpness and detail to it. But take note that some certain camera modes only work in 18 megapixels, so there's that. Next test is portrait mode with different bokeh effects. Honestly, it's quite hit or miss, and the most reliable one is the portrait circle mode. It has the least amount of mistake when it comes to edge detection. The overall bokeh effects vary greatly depending on the amount of contrast you have with your background. And now, here are the rest of the indoor test shots. Alright guys, so this is a video and microphone test for the front-facing camera of the Huawei Y7P. So we're currently indoors with poor lighting condition. So let me know in the comments below what you think about the image quality as well as the sound quality. So now we're going to turn on one of our studio lights here so that we can have a better image quality or better lighting. There you go. So what do you think about the difference between now than before with poor lighting in the comments below, guys? And now this is a video test for the main camera with, again, poor lighting condition first. And then we're going to turn on our softbox. There you go. So what do you think about the image quality with proper lighting compared to with poor lighting condition for the main camera of the Huawei Y7P? Overall, when it comes to indoor or low light image quality, I'd say the images are okay and usable. But where the smartphone cameras shine the most is when you put an ample amount of light on the sensor. So let's move on to the outdoors and daylight shots. As you can see, like I said, if you use these tiny cameras and sensors with a good amount of light, you will certainly get decently looking images. However, I'm quite disappointed with the HDR mode as I don't really see any significant difference compared to the normal photo mode. Ideally, it should be able to balance out the shadows and highlights, but it wasn't the case here. The ultra-wide lens is useful, however the contrast and sharpness are significantly reduced and of course, you'll get a slightly distorted image which is normal. 2x zoom is also decent but you'll lose some of the sharpness on the edges. Now, here's the rest of the outdoor test shots. Video test. Overall, when it comes to outdoor shots, the image quality is definitely better, though I feel like sharpness and contrast are a little too much, especially on video mode. And there you have it guys, I think I've already covered everything that I want to tackle in this video. So to conclude, the Huawei Y7P certainly has decent specs for its price, the design and construction is really beautiful, especially with this Aurora Blue variant. It also has useful pre-installed apps that is quite handy for first-time Huawei users and features their own Huawei mobile services and app gallery that is continuously being improved. Performance-wise, with decent specs for its price, it is relatively smooth for browsing the user interface, gaming, and overall media consumption. The triple camera setup is also capable in good lighting conditions but suffers a bit in low light environment. And lastly, speaker quality could have been better but at least they retain the 3.5mm jack. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to check the full article link below. Huge thanks to Huawei for sending this in. You can get this from their partner stores, link below as well. Please let me know in the comments below guys if you would like to see more smartphone reviews like this because I'm not sure if I did a good job with this one. But yeah, thank you for watching, subscribe if you like this and don't forget to subscribe to our second Pinoy Tech B-Roll channel. Have a great day, see you next time.